Another coach's catch-up via Zoom. We love speaking with this bloke. It's great to have. He's a little bit early. He's 7 months early. Great to have you here, Sam. Oh, hang on. It's Nick Smith.
It is, mate. No, yeah. As you can see, ISO is really growing on me, so to speak.
You flirted with sort of growth and stuff like that, but you've really let that one go.
Yeah, I've really had a crack. Yeah, I've basically just given up, and this is what happens. haven't been into the sunlight for about 2 months. So
beautiful day today.
It is. It's nice. I need to get out.
Are you optimistic, Nick, after what we saw on the weekend from AFL Vic in regards to training being sanctioned from May 25, or is it a false dawn?
Mate, I don't understand why we're talking about training when we don't know when we're playing. I went straight to my club and my players and I said, well, I'm not planning any training until we know if we're playing. Can you imagine, mate, going back to training for a month and then getting communication that you're not playing? How annoying. Like, just tell us. If we're not playing, tell us. If we are playing, then tell us, and then we'll train because we know that we're preparing to play. That's my feeling on it.
Yep. To play devil's advocate on that, though, is there something to be said about just getting the guys together just for not just their physical health, but their mental health as well?
There probably is, but, mate, if you've read the guidelines, it's a logistical nightmare. I've got 60 guys I've got to manage, and I can only do it in groups of 10 on half and over. Like, it's not going to achieve that. I think if guys want to have a kick of footy, they can do that at any stage. I guess I've said to my group, I'm not doing any formalised training until we know that it's going towards a purpose. But I'm happy for guys to get together informally. We'll put the footies out. You can do whatever you want. But, mate, do you know how exhausting it was to read those instructions and think as a coach who's pretty much doing it on his own, like most of us local coaches? We're not the AFL, mate. We don't have 14 coaches on staff and you can give them all a responsibility and break them up. I'd have to be at training pretty much every night, wouldn't I, to get through the 50, 60 blokes I'm responsible for.
How many grounds have you got access to at Galvin Park? Do you have 2?
Well, that's the other interesting thing, mate. We don't have access to any grounds. I checked on that with Alan Stewart today, and he said that council hasn't cleared use of local facilities. And real interesting wording. I was just reading the email, mate. There's very interesting wording. Give me one tick because I thought it would interest you. They said, this came direct from our council. Just give me 1 minute.
Which is City of Wyndham up there?
Yeah, I think so. They said in saying that the proposal was that grounds could only be booked once a sports governing body has released their return to play guidelines.
Okay.
Makes sense, doesn't it? In other words, they're not going to let you train on an oval, and all of the risks that go with the management of that until you're doing it in order to play rather than just train. So that was interesting too. And this is what throws me, Kingy, is every time something comes out publicly, I've got to go and flame and put a blanket on the fire in my Facebook group or two of your players who are all, jumping around ready to play because I get that. But I just think it's unfair to keep, because the problem is AFL Vic communicates it, but then every league is taking a different position on how that then plays out.
You were the first coach when this all went down to come out and say, more than anything, mental health is important with the playing group. You were massive on that when we spoke back in mid-March. How's your group been I know obviously your, pastoral care is really good with your players. How have your players adapted to what's gone on for the last 8 or 9 weeks?
Yeah, I think it all depends on the player. And so you have guys really keen, just want to play no matter what. There's definitely a group where the interest is just waning and they've kind of just moved on. Footy's not happening and you just park it, mate. So, that's the younger crew. They pretty easily just bounce on to, just go play some Fortnite or Call of Duty, mate, and you're all sorted. Where the older crew like Prizza and the guys that just live and breathe it are really dying with no footy. So we've got a bit of a split jury on that. Yeah, it's hard, mate, because there's not much you can replace it with. Even I've found it, mate. I was saying to someone the other day, I think it's the first time in 30 years that I haven't had footy at the centre of your winter. So, yeah, it's weird. But, look, generally speaking, mate, we've made a real effort to just connect. So just stay connected. Facebook's awesome for that.
Yep.
We've been doing some get-to-know-you surveys about our leadership group over the last couple of weeks. There's some real interesting info coming out. So.
Yep. Further to that, you've said you've conducted a survey of your players. What did you ask your players and what were their responses?
There's probably 3 or 4, mate. One interesting one was I asked players how they were feeling about footy. And it ranged from can't wait, let me play, to I'm not really that bothered about it anymore, to not really thinking about it anymore, to don't really want to play. We had 60 people respond, and there was probably, about 20 to 25% sort of almost kind of,
okay,
take it or leave it, which was really interesting. I just think it's gone too long now. That's that effect. What else did we asked whether they were happy to play for no money, because that when that salary cap came out, can you imagine, mate, sitting there and trying to redo contracts and everything? Like, we haven't even talked about that. But that was an awesome response. Most guys just said happy to play. But most of the strong feedback actually came around the length of the season. So one of the questions I asked was, would you play a season that was less than 11 games? Because that means we play each other once. And it was almost categoric, no.
Yep.
They don't want to play a season that's less than that. They think that's tainted. It's not the full deal.
Yep.
And the other 2 questions I asked were, would you be bothered not playing in front of crowds? Because my understanding is it's very likely if there is a return to play, it won't be in front of crowds. And that was interesting. Most of them just said that didn't faze them too much, although they don't understand the practicalities around that, because that's the key question for us as a committee, is you need the crowds. But the one that was very interesting was, would you be interested in playing if it meant there was no social functions or socialising allowed? Because my understanding is, you'd have to play your game and then just go.
Yep. And
that was really strong against. So to the point where I think it was about 15 to 20% said they wouldn't play because footy is more than that. Like, I worded the question something like, footy is more than that. I don't want to just play footy. And it was about, I think 10 did that. And there was about another 10 or 15 who said they'd want sort of clarification around, what does that look like? Like, what do you mean by socialising? Can we just have a drink together? Because when you think about it, can you imagine winning a grand final but not being able to celebrate it? Like, what does that even mean? Like, have we thought about what that might look like? So anyway,
15 to 20 blokes, you would say, on most local football lists are only there to play at 12 o'clock so they can have a beer at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, and that was interesting too, Kingy, because my survey allows me to break them into, because we did Colts, reserves and seniors. And basically all the Colts just want to play, don't care, because they don't have the money, the livelihood, all that to balance. Most of the reserves, it was more about the social. They're really worried about having to have a footy season that means you can't. For example, what if the 2s can't watch the 1s? What's the purpose? What's the purpose? And then the senior group were kind of probably more around, all of those other aspects. So, and to be honest, mate, I think we should be asking the players for more input, and the coaches. How come I haven't been asked?
Yeah.
Like I would have thought that as local coaches, we should be the first they come to and go, what's your club thinking? How are they feeling? Because what's your understanding, King? Are they just going to come out and give us an instruction without even asking us?
Well, yeah. Well, I think because we know you coach a GDFL side who sort of fall into line underneath AFL Barwon, who fall into line under AFL Vic. I suspect it's now just a case of waiting for AFL Vic to go, well, the government says this is how we can play. And then from there, I suspect local competitions will then make their own decisions. AFL Barwon, I believe, surveyed all their clubs. I'm not sure whether that extended to GDFL. I understand, though, Nick, GDFL clubs have been surveyed fairly thoroughly. You've received a questionnaire from your league.
Well, yeah, but only today, which I find a little bit bizarre. Why would you ask us today?
Yeah, a bit late.
Don't you think that's strange?
Would have thought it might have come out a little bit, especially when the AFL Barwon one's been out for at least a fortnight. Yeah, I would have thought it would have a little bit easier. I think 3 weeks ago, there was no way we were playing at the end of April, there was no way we were playing this year. But it seems to be there's a sense of, maybe optimism might not be the right word, but there's a sense that, things fall our way maybe, and, the government, maybe the timelines they're looking at might pull back, a little bit more, that it might open the door. I personally, I see it hard. I find it hard to see us playing, but I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again. But this is one where I'm probably going, do you know what? I'll set myself up for a fail, because if it goes ahead, I'll be wrapped.
Yeah, and I think most people would be wrapped if it goes ahead, mate, including me. But I left off one question that I asked the players. I did ask them if they were concerned about safety, like their own safety, because I find it all a bit ironic, mate, that I've been living in a cave, as you can see, for 2 months. I'm not allowed to go to work. Yeah, I'm not allowed in there. Now, obviously, being at Richmond, I'm not allowed anywhere near there. They've totally shut down the place like it's quarantine, like it's a zoo. We got clear instructions today. No one can come anywhere near the club who's not involved in footy. Yeah, in a couple of weeks, they just want me to roll out onto the local oval and just start playing footy again. It just seems strange, mate. Because what I asked my players, pretty straightforward. Like, are you worried about the safety of playing a physical sport where you're all sharing the same footy against 22 people that you don't know? Like, you can have all the lockdown procedures you want for your own training, but Saturdays it's on, isn't it? Yeah. You're either playing or you're not.
Just on the GDFL survey, we spoke off air before I hit record. I believe it's fairly thorough, 55 questions.
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's all of the questions. It has questions around things like, what would be an acceptable crowd limit to go ahead, because I heard a great discussion. I think it was the Mornington Peninsula League. Their presidents all said, if you can't get to 500 people, we can't play, because that was their little calculation of what you would require to, be able to have a functioning footy season. So I think that was a good question. Then there was also some questions around, do you still have enough players to field enough teams? And there were questions around what you and I chatted briefly about too, of would you be okay with just a senior and under 19s season, or, like whatever modification? And see, for me, I don't want anything other than everyone playing, because that's a very, very different model.
So if you can't have seniors, reserves, Colts, netball, the junior teams you field in the WRFL, that it's just not worth it.
It's a little bit. So I want to make a distinction. The WRFL and the juniors is like a separate committee. Yeah, so I won't speak on behalf of the juniors.
Yep.
But I would, my personal opinion is it's pretty hard to just go, we're just going to play senior footy and everybody else at the club can't play. Like, to me, it defeats the purpose of what our club has been trying to build in terms of culture and, trying to build that camaraderie that comes from your like talking about being a club rather than a team. It'd be pretty tough to sell that, wouldn't it, mate, if you're telling 30 blokes each week they can't play.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, really appreciate your time. Great job there up at the North Pole. Really sunny up there for this time of year too.
It is. It's not bad. Not bad. The ice caps are melting, mate. It's true. You got to be careful with those aerosols, mate.
Climate change. It'll do it to you. Great stuff, Nick. Looking fantastic. I thought my ISO beard was good, but yours makes you look very distinguished. So you've done a good job with that.
Keep working, mate. Keep working on it.
Just very quickly. Now, you've got a very talented son, as we know, in Jackson, who we know is a very talented footballer, but he's been going all right with guitar in hand.
He has, yeah. You need to check out I think he's got like an Instagram or something. I don't know, mate. He blocked me because you can't have your parents looking at stuff, so I have to take your word for it. I know, the kid can play. Unfortunately, mate, he was meant to be featuring on some sort of TV-related talent show, but that all got canned by COVID-19, so stay tuned.
Wow. Which one? Well, not obviously. Oh, well, there's The Voice is on, so he's not on that. So the only other one I can think of is X Factor, or what? I don't know. What's on these days?
Something about having talent or something.
Australia's Got Talent or something like that.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, we'll have to keep an eye out. And yourself, you like tinkling the ivories.
Yeah. Not very well. Nothing in comparison to Jacko. Check him out.
Will Jacko play footy this year if you get up?
Unlikely. He was unlikely anyway.
Yep.
But he's one he's moved on from footy. Yeah, they very easily bounce on to the next thing, mate.
Yeah. Nick, great to talk. Always a pleasure to talk footy with you. Great to hear from you. And I think you're probably the first coach to come out and say that you're not going to start training unless you've got a return to play date. So, hopefully we get a return to play date in the not too distant future, and it's worthwhile for you.
No worries, Kingy. Thanks, mate. I always enjoy having a chat.